Hi, I'm Blake McKimmie. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and their custodianship of the lands in which we meet and pay my respect to their ancestors and their descendants. Friends, we've been through a lot together in the last year. In this video, I'd like to look back on 2020 and reflect on what we've learnt about learning. Before doing that, I'd also like to acknowledge my collaborators, Professors Barbara Massa and Mark Horswell. Together, we reimagined how to teach the psychology of criminal justice by basing our course and assessment around a fictional crime drama, with students taking on various roles during the investigation to demonstrate what they had learnt by critically analysing research and applying it to improve how the detectives tried to solve the crime. I won't be talking about that work in this video. Instead, I'd like to pull apart some of the challenges we had last year and examine them from the inside. So think less Bloom's taxonomy, rather more Bloom's taxidermy. We went through a lot in 2020. It started with large parts of Australia on fire. Then a spotlight illuminated the ongoing structural and institutional racism and inequality in society, both overseas and here at home. We witnessed the most bizarre election in a Western democracy, which ended in an attempted coup and highlighted deep divisions within society. We had repeated toilet paper shortages and endless social media posts about homemade sourdough bread. Although these last two seem somewhat humorous, they suggest that people felt the need to be self-reliant, that they had to look out for themselves. And perhaps this was not surprising, because we were all told to actually keep away from each other. All of this being either due to or underscored by a global pandemic, which disrupted the social part of our lives and teaching and learning, and changed our teaching from this to this. And although there was a concerted effort to minimise the negative impact on the student experience and learning, we still saw a range of issues come to the fore. Students told us they were thinking more about leaving, and they were less satisfied in some courses. Students told us they missed their social connections on campus. Course coordinators told us that it was difficult to get students to engage online, and we saw increased withdrawals from courses where students had not attempted the assessment. Students told us they were more stressed, and course coordinators told us they had to provide more mental health support. There was a significant increase in academic integrity cases, and assessment was submitted later, sometimes of lower quality, and students told us their workload was higher. Now, I would acknowledge the massive amount of work that was directed at tackling these problems throughout 2020, although we did tend to attack each in isolation. But there is something connecting all of them, and that is social identity. This comes from the social groups that we belong to, like our professional identity, discipline identity, cohort identity, course identity, and even cultural identity. Identity is important for positive attitudes about study. It increases commitment and reduces attrition. Identity increases satisfaction. It's why we aspire to commence study and helps us finish our study. This is because social identity is what allows norms and attitudes to influence our behaviour. Identity is also important for engagement. It increases our willingness to work for the group, minimises social loafing, helps groups function, especially online, and taking part in group work increases engagement. Identity is important for mental health as it satisfies fundamental psychological needs. Students with higher levels of identification as a student have less stress because their identity allows social support to work. Those with a larger number of group memberships show better adjustment to life transitions, such as commencing study. Identity is important for academic integrity. We know that acquiring attitudes and behaviours about integrity are essential for assuring academic integrity, and this happens partly through socialisation by academics through a shared identity as students learn about the descriptive norms, which is what people do, and injunctive norms, which is what people think you should do. A shared social identity also increases motivation to learn. It improves communication within a group, improves encoding of information, and encourages deeper processing. And finally, belonging is a part of a shared social identity. Identity is essential for a sense of belonging. Belonging is also one of the university's strategic priorities. I'm hoping to convince you that it's actually essential for many of the other strategic priorities. It will help us deliver high quality learning experiences by enhancing learning in person and online. It'll help us attract students into postgraduate programs by building that sense of belonging. Social identity will also strengthen our sense of community and improve student well-being, and also promote a culture of academic integrity. A strong connection through identity is also important for our ongoing relations with our alumni. Identity should be at the centre of everything we do. I think this is the big lesson of 2020, not the debate about whether the lecture is dead or whether nothing works online. I think that comparison is somewhat distracting. That's the form of our teaching, not the purpose of our teaching. Instead, we should focus on the people involved in the learning. Now, this might not actually be that new of an idea. There's already a body of research about the importance of belonging in the classroom, and people have been building identity in their classes for some time. This is my dad. He used to teach illustration at the College of Art. About 35 years ago, I used to go and sit in on his classes. He'd run these sessions in the studio, critiquing the student assessment pieces. The whole class would contribute to the feedback and problem solve. They also regularly worked together throughout the year. They were a very tight-knit group with a strong sense of us as a group. Even to this day, many of them still keep in touch. So while a focus on building a sense of identity might not be new, I think we used to often do this accidentally or incidentally. Given the events of the last year that interrupted these incidental opportunities to build identity, perhaps we need to start doing that purposefully to help us achieve our strategic goals. This may seem somewhat obvious on reflection now that we know how 2020 unfolded, but maybe that just means that hindsight really is 2020.